Hello, and welcome back to Level 1 News. Today is March 15th, and we're doing government and security today. Also, I don't know if it'll show up on the camera, but don't mind the random flashes. There's stuff happening in another office today.
Or the screaming children.
If you can hear that. Hopefully you won't be able to hear that.
Yeah, maybe, but...
I don't know. It's pretty awful. We emerge into another week where there will be one topic dominating everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's not much we can do about it, but it does have major effects on the technology world.
Yes.
And technology is a big factor in what's going on, especially when it comes to data security. Of course, we've been talking about data security for how many years now?
Yeah.
Everybody banging that drum. But physical security.
What happens with your data centers in Kiev?
If you
Nothing
cannot
good.
restrict physical access to a server, you cannot protect it, which creates quite a difficulty.
Oh no, is the driver crash? There it goes.
There it goes.
Exclusive. Ukraine prepares potential move of sensitive data to another country. So, because the internet, and there's still power, it's like you can move things out. Also, Cloudflare. You know, Cloudflare has some servers. There's a distribution thing. So if the servers go offline for a period of time, they will automatically format themselves and erase all customer data.
The problem is, it's actually illegal under all the data protection rules to take it out of the country. So they would have to actually get together and rule that it's okay to take certain servers out of the country as the rockets are falling.
It's extenuating circumstances. I'm pretty sure the EU will give them a pass.
Maybe.
Well, they're not in the EU, right? Not yet.
Yeah.
So it'll just be their local government who has to decide.
Yeah.
It might not exist, so.
Great.
Meanwhile, Russia, they're having their own problems, and they're having quite a bit of them to do with technology because everybody has turned them off. So what do you do when you can't renew your certificate? Not because someone's telling you can't, but because you literally cannot get a payment to them.
Russia creates its own TLS certificate authority to bypass the sanctions. TLS encryption is a little bit problematic because it's a central authority.
There's some banging going on in the background, so if you hear that, we
We're
apologize.
under siege. So yeah, now if you're wondering how can they get away with that, well, they've done a few tricks to make it work. It shouldn't be like that. It should be a trusted authority. Not sure anybody trusts them at this point. And the run-of-the-mill Russians, who are not involved in any of this and are just suffering, they've been cut off from Netflix and all the little comforts that we have in this world. So the smart ones are probably, well, I don't know if this might not be smart. This might be a very stupid thing to do, but the desperate ones, what are they doing?
How Russians are evading the internet blockade. There are so many interesting posts on so many sites like Reddit that are, look at this amazing thing that I figured out a way around blah, blah, blah. There's also a couple people that have taken and put together compilations from all the influencers that live in Russia, all the people that have popular TikTok accounts and YouTube accounts and so on and so forth. And it all seems like they've read the same message. It's very... what was the Sinclair Communications? It was a very Sinclair Communications moment.
Was the VPN use was up 1,000%, I think, in Russia.
Yeah.
Was the number in that article.
They got these, and Ukraine's up too. And Zambia, for whatever reason, Zambia.
I like that they're included in this.
I guess they're number 3, right?
Yeah.
But a distant third, for sure. And all of that's great. You know, if you can get to a VPN, maybe they have some really poorly done controls. You can get around it. But there are some changes that are coming that you cannot escape.
The internet backbone giant Lumen has a shun.ru. That's the headline. But they're basically just a backbone provider. They provide, point-to-point fiber services. They're disconnecting Russia. Not only are they not providing internet service for Russia, traffic that previously would transit through Russia, like say you needed to get some data from, Spain to China, well, Russia might be a route that your fiber optic cable would take. No more.
And when you have been cut off from the world and completely isolated, you're going to lose things like software licenses. How do you license Microsoft Office in Russia? The answer is
you can't.
There is no path for doing that. So what do?
Russian mulls legalizing software piracy as it's cut off from Western tech.
Haven't they kind of already done this at this point?
Well,
Kind of.
they play lip service to it, but I don't think they enforce it too terribly hard.
Yeah.
Well, this is also like cloud services. Microsoft Office 365. Russia was a huge customer, or Russian customers, I should say, were a huge part of Microsoft Office 365, and those services have to go away. Almost, people have forgotten how to run a local mail server, so it's sort of problematic.
And when it comes to taking over things, that's not the biggest thing that they could take over. They're actually talking about McDonald's isn't willing to operate, but the restaurant is still here. The equipment is still here.
McVlad's.
We can get the stuff.
McComrade.
So, you know what? Well, then I'm not even going to call it that. What's better than not giving it your own name?
Russia says that it's going to just go ahead and use patents from anyone in quote-unquote unfriendly countries, which is basically everybody.
And later they added trademarks to that as well.
And they're not going to enforce any of it.
They might actually open McDonald's without McDonald's having anything to do with it.
I mean...
Would they ever come back to the country after that, though?
What blows my mind about all this is, Gorbachev is still alive. And he's probably looking at this saying, what's going on? He's like, he can't have his Pizza Hut anymore. Remember the Pizza Hut Gorbachev?
I watched that commercial this week. That is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
The opening of that McDonald's in Moscow was one of those Cold War moments. Yeah. Where I was like, it's over.
Yeah.
They're with us now.
People are hoarding McDonald's. I've seen photos going around social media where people have packed their fridges with McDonald's burgers.
Well, the good news is they'll never rot, right?
Yeah, you can eat those for ages.
I don't know if you should eat them, but probably shouldn't eat them now. And we continue to get more and more tech companies. Some of them are a little late to the party, but they are piling onto the dog pile of anti-Russia in a big way.
DuckDuckGo to downrank sites associated with Russian disinformation. As we always do, we caution, it's like, well...
How do you define that?
Yeah, who decides?
There was an update at the bottom of the article where they asked them and they responded, and they said that they were going to be basically downvoting RT, I think, the Russian news sites.
It's a lot of words, but they're basically just saying, yeah, we are doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is clearly absurd. Some of the stuff that has been said is as absurd as an ancient alien civilization with a moon base left some magical free energy technology behind, and that's what everybody's after. And it's like, well, I mean, if you've got 17 official sources saying that, okay.
No, I don't trust any of them.
There might be an alien moon base with a free energy device.
It's crazy to me that we're looking at another superpower and we're saying, my God, look at their propaganda abilities. Look how easy it is for them to deceive their citizenry. And we don't look in that mirror 1 second. It's like, wait a minute.
That is kind of the point. Like all of the sort of the dark timeline stuff that we're always harping on, or watching somebody else do it. So it's a lot easier to see the dangers of all this. 1, shutting down the technology. 2, tracking the descent. 3, being able to... It's like, you posted this thing that doesn't sound like you are in line with the dear leader. And when somebody shows up at your house like that, it's like,
But also, I think it points out that our version... Our cancel culture version is super effective compared to theirs. Like the single man in charge, top-down control is not nearly as effective as cancel culture, as he is finding out, because that's destroying him. And some companies, God bless them, they built their whole world on the idea of decentralization and a lack of this kind of control, because you have to have that to have true freedom. But even those companies are just dipping their toes into that water.
Coinbase has blocked 25,000 crypto wallets linked to Russian users. Because what choice do they have?
They're not blocking everybody, but they are blocking ones that they claim they can prove are somehow involved in the war or connected to it in some way. Or are just, criminals or whatever. Which is worse, right? It's arbitrary blocking instead of blanket blocking. This is just more of we decide what's right and wrong. And Ukraine, as we know, have been getting quite a lot of crypto donations. We also learned last week that they just got some random NFTs that people sent them, and they're not sure what to do with them.
Nobody knows what to do with those.
The Washington Post gives us a little bit more detail on that.
Ukraine asked for adoption or donations in crypto, and then things got weird. So this talks a little bit about that. At first it's probably some well-meaning people popped up and said, hey, if that's a way that you want to send us money, that's fine, we'll deal with it. And then it was, well, here's some NFTs. And so it's like, On the one hand, like if Banksy shows up and creates artwork just for you and says, "Here, auction this," that could be really cool. But on the other hand, these are NFTs.
Just take a Bored Ape, slap some blue and yellow behind it. Somebody will buy it.
Yeah.
That could be good. If this goes on much longer, which God forbid, they might need to do that. Although they did point out that, what do they make? Like 20 million or something, maybe less than that. It's really not even a candle compared to how much are we sending them in our spending bill?
An obscene amount.
Way up
Tens of
there.
billions.
I think it's 20 billion, right?
Yeah.
So they're probably okay on money right now.
Didn't China send like 500 million? It was like a paltry amount compared to every other nation, I think.
Yeah, well. If you notice, that happens whenever there's a big outrage. All the companies will donate, but the donates will fluctuate based on where they are politically.
Yeah. It's also another aspect of this is that everything is so well connected that there are people on both sides of the conflict that are still posting to social media. And when you do that, the whole face recognition thing, which may or may not be accurate and all that comes into play. And it's like this person is like, oh, we spotted this group of soldiers moving this way. And the video is clear enough. You can very clearly make out their faces and then feed it to Clearview and then say, oh, this is their Instagram. So again, all the level 1 darkest timelines here are unfolding. And if you pay attention to the little details, the genie may already be out of the bottle on a lot of this stuff.
This does seem like the strangest sort of conflict where suddenly social media plays a part.
Yeah.
I mean, there are videos and stuff of other conflicts around the world, but this one, it's like it's happening in real time.
Oh, well, if not for social media, then the universal attack against Putin would not have materialized like this. Yeah, it's definitely unique. I think that's the thing that he didn't anticipate.
Yeah. Well, is it because most of, or a good percentage of Ukrainian citizenry were online and they had an online presence?
No, I think it's the whole world.
I mean, but think about Crimea. That happened, 2014?
Yeah.
But we didn't really have cancel culture in 2014.
We didn't really have, we had social media, but was it as big of a presence as it is now?
No, and it hadn't been, we hadn't experienced the Trump presidency, which really sort of distilled all of that and made it, a weapon to be used.
2016 was also the year Harambe died, so something changed then.
Well, Amazon, as you know, is being maligned for using seller data to enrich themselves. It's the kind of thing that they've been doing for a lot of years, so it's not surprising. But even when they're pressed by lawmakers, they tend to not give any sort of direct answer, which, surprisingly enough, is also the thing that the lawmakers always do, which is funny because it made them super angry when Amazon did it.
Amazon referred to the Department of Justice for potential criminal obstruction of Congress. This is for obtuse answers and answers that were misleading, if not untruthful.
Shouldn't Kamala Harris be under the jail if that's a criminal offense?
Misleading answers for things?
She doesn't even answer. She just cackles. And the crypto world continues to whipsaw around because no one's sure what's going on with money, and they don't know whether to get in or get out.
Bitcoin drops below 40,000 and stays there for quite a while, almost wiping out gains from Biden's crypto executive order. The executive order wasn't as bad as many feared, so everybody was excited.
It wasn't much of anything.
But then global politics, and then everybody was not super excited.
I realized that I entered this story as like a roll-up for also talking about the Biden thing, but the Biden thing really didn't say a whole lot.
No, it really didn't.
Just
he's got his hands full right now.
But, well, one thing it did say is that the Fed coin is coming. Now, the question is, will the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government ever compete with Bitcoin because Bitcoin will always be more valuable, or will they destroy it?
They'll probably destroy it. They're probably trying to figure out how to destroy it.
Every nation is trying to do that right now. They launch their own coin and try to
Not
destroy Bitcoin.
El Salvador, Krista.
Well, yeah. Almost every nation except for El Salvador.
The most brilliant minds on Wall Street and inside Goldman Sachs right now are hatching some sort of diabolical plan to poison the Bitcoin well.
Also, Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan were a couple of the holdouts. I didn't put stories in here because it's not really tech, but they were some of the last to exit Russia.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we have to go.
And, social media is a thorn in the paw of despotic leaders. They want to control it because things get out on there that they do not like.
Georgia Senate passes a bill seeking to regulate social media. This is I couldn't really tell a lot of difference between this bill and some of the other bills that passed in other states, but then failed once they were challenged at the Supreme Court level. Like the one in Florida, that was dumb.
Yeah, I think it all hinges on the argument of, some people say that they're editorializing.
By picking and choosing what to promote.
Which is probably true. But
I think their point was that they wanted them to remove certain things.
Yeah.
Or they didn't want them to remove certain things.
Well, it's the Republicans are saying that they're being, selected. Like, if you get a Black Lives Matter post and, a right-wing post, Proud Boys post, the Proud Boys post will go down.
Right.
Whereas the Black Lives Matter won't. And the tech people have been, very vocal about their political leanings.
Right.
But gets into the question of, they can do what they want.
That's a private company. That's their argument.
Do you think maybe the only real fix here is to just make people understand that sometimes they'll see, like, somebody will post things to the internet that it's not true?
Or just something you just don't like?
No, people will never understand that. People will never get to the point where they see something they don't like and say, well, I just have to deal with that.
But I don't understand why state media is saying that we have this weird alien moon free energy device. Why would they say that? Would they just go on the news and tell lies?
Think they'll ever try to nationalize social media?
It's
I've thought about that. Like this lawsuit kind of made me think, will they try that eventually?
It's so hilarious that you say that because you weren't trying to, but that was a perfect analogy for green energy.
Yeah.
Oh, you were trying to do that. Whoa! Somebody's leaning a little right today. And when it comes to energy, that is a big topic. It's funny, speaking of, bias, Fox News has shifted the entire narrative onto the oil industry.
Yeah.
Like the oil lobby dollars are flowing over at Fox News. But the one thing that nobody seems to want to talk about
is nuclear. Rolls-Royce SMR design has been accepted for review in the UK. This is that design. We talked about this 2 years ago, and this is one of the new nuclear reactor designs. I am all for new nuclear reactor designs.
In another state.
Far away from where we live.
I would be okay if there was one in town. I would be okay with it.
We're the kind of poor where we could definitely get something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the kind of place where they're like, hey, nobody cares about that place.
Yeah. If there's a horrible radiation leak there, screw them.
Is it true that there's because Springfield and The Simpsons, and it's like, which Springfield is it? And there are several Springfields that have nuclear reactors, so it's kind of like, But this is a new design, and we can make a nuclear reactor that is safer and will fail more safely than the other ones. Like Chernobyl, which I always get the details wrong on. One of the reasons that they're only just now able to do dismantling, according to some of the articles, is because the fuel had to cool off for 20 years. It no longer requires active cooling because it's 20 years old now. It's basically fizzled out. And it's like, oh yeah, that was the design. It's like, that's not a good design.
And next year it can vote.
If it survives that long. Hopefully that isn't like something horrible by the time this releases and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she made a joke about that.
Actually, it's interesting. I saw several headlines like midweek that Chernobyl and the one that starts with a Z, the big one, were both without power, but I never saw any follow-up.
No, there's follow-up. The International Nuclear Agency, I guess, that helps monitor, they say that all their monitoring stuff is gone. They can't get in contact with the staff at this point. They don't know if it has power. They don't know if Chernobyl cooling systems have power.
Chrissy, you said there's an update, but you just told me there's no update.
Well, there is an update. The update is, the IA couldn't get hold of them before, or they could get hold of them before. They can't now. So they have no way to check in on it.
They had telemetry.
Yeah.
But the Russians have disconnected that.
Yeah.
Or the power going out has disconnected.
Yeah, they have no way to know what it's like now.
Chernobyl doesn't require active cooling because the fuel's 20 years old, but it's still percolating. The one that starts with a Z has 2 of 5 power lines on, but they don't have great communication with that.
That one either, yeah.
You know what's great? Apparently the people who were working there were working at gunpoint, and they didn't let them take breaks. But the great thing about it, if you want a cup of tea, just go over and dip it down the reservoir. It's already boiling.
Delicious.
Maybe if you could convince your captors that would make a delicious cup of tea.
It's the ultimate cleanse.
It's not going to save you in the short term, though. How long is that going to take to kill somebody? A day or two? Well, if we can, for a moment, forget the horror that's going on over in Western Europe, let's think about problems we had before all of this, because those problems are still there, and people are still railing against the horror of the tracking nation.
TechCrunch reports Italy has fined Clearview AI 20 million euros and orders the data to be deleted. Like, there's not a lot of new information here other than Italy looked at what we've covered in the past for what Clearview is doing. And, there's the saying, it's like if you're going to sin boldly. Clearview AI is sinning very, very boldly. And Italy is looking at this saying, no, you're building a worldwide facial recognition database. What if people use that? What if there's a conflict where everybody's got a cell phone and a drone and they're taking really high resolution pictures of everybody and looking them up on the internet? That seems like that would be bad.
Now, Clearview responded and they said, we don't operate in Italy. So what you going to do about it?
But data from Italy was used that was posted to the internet.
Yeah, they say that's fine. They're allowed to do that. They checked with themselves. In China, China is being very quiet. And that's probably the smart thing to do right now, right? Just wait. They're doing the Sun Tzu thing. Let your enemies make mistakes and do nothing. And in the meantime, their economy is humming right along, and I'm sure that they are looking forward to filling all those orders going north.
China led the world with a 500,000 electric car export in 2021. 500,000 electric cars. Probably going to be a few fewer now with the nickel cost being what it is.
Yeah, the nickel.
Is that the next story? I don't know.
No, I didn't put the nickel story in. That's not technology.
No, there was a Tesla story. Is that not in this section?
Oh, it's in business. Yeah,
we'll talk about the nickel when we do that story. I forgot about that one. And, this is another one of those stories that's like, well, yeah, we kind of knew this, but are they taking advantage of us being distracted, maybe?
Cybersecurity firm says Chinese hackers breached 6 U.S. state agencies. We need to know what they know now, and now they do.
And it turns out they've been there for a while.
Yeah.
Probably got a lot of stuff.
They've probably been there since the OPM hack.
You got to give it up to the Chinese. They're very good at getting in and being patient. Patience seems to be a big part of the Chinese strategy. And remember the one where they faked them out by stealing a little bit of money just to throw off suspicion?
Yeah.
That's a truly Chinese play right there. Brilliant. But not good news for us. And, of course, the other cybersecurity that we know the hacking has to be happening around the clock, right?
The Ukraine and the U.S. were both targeted by cybersecurity attacks in the run-up to Russian invasion. So this has some more details. Some companies got together, they looked at their logs, and they said, hey, wait, this was a coordinated attack. This wasn't just the usual background noise of doing business on the internet. This was an actual coordinated thing. Now, not all those attacks were successful or marginally successful, but still it's interesting that those data points are exposed that way. Also, your cybersecurity insurance. If you have an incident and it requires somebody to come in and spend a bunch of time fixing you up, they're not going to cover that right now.
There was a lot of talk early on during the invasion, which is weird because we're getting to a point where early on was way back then.
Like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. But there was a lot of talk about, it's like, well, we know they have this big hacking campaign. Why are they not using that more effectively? And I think the answer might be that he didn't ever expect it to get to this point.
Yeah.
Like he didn't even think he needed the hacking team. Just distract them before we attack.
This is going to be a weekend at Bernie's operation. We were going to get in, we were going to get out. It was going to be fine.
Weekend at Zelensky's. And we do have the hackers on the other side of the aisle. Most of them seem to be just a big mass of untalented people trying to be a part of it, but clearly some of them are getting in.
Transparency Org releases alleged leak of Russian censorship agency. 800 gigabytes of data from Roskomnadzor. And that Anonymous has claimed responsibility. So this is mostly emails, but it is nice to sort of peer behind the curtain. It's like, no, you must not refer to that as this. It must be referred to as this.
How much of a time slice is 800 gigabytes for the Russian apparatus of spying?
I'm sure we can answer that with this data set, but I don't know.
I think it's got to be amazingly short, right? Probably not a ton of time. And the companies continue to get hacked. They continue to lose valuable information. It's kind of becoming a run-of-the-mill thing, which is weird.
Samsung confirms confirms that the Galaxy Source breach happened, but says no customer information was stolen. That doesn't matter. The customer information stealing comes later. Do you see? That's not actually comforting for them to say that. See also the NSO group.
And Nvidia, of course, finding out that even if it's not customer data, it can be a huge pain for you.
Stolen Nvidia certificates used to hide malware and driver downloads. So this is the first of two major things that are going to happen with malware as a result of this leak. This one is just driver signing. The certificates were stolen. Your operating system is going to have to look for these old certificates and not trust any software that's written with them, which means you need to update your driver, and your driver is going to use a new certificate. And that's not the worst of it. The worst part of it is like the Samsung hack. Now that they have the software, they will find vulnerabilities in it. Because it's not open source, they're probably not up to snuff in terms of security hardening. And this is not the first time this has happened. So it will create a vector for malware that if you've got, an Nvidia driver that has a certain architectural vulnerability in it, that the malware will be able to use that to escalate its privileges to something else, which is what's coming for Samsung Galaxy owners, I promise you. That source code will mysteriously find its way into the hands of NSO Group or a company like NSO Group, and they will absolutely use that to find an exploit and surreptitiously install software.
Also, those certificates will generally still work right now. You can set your antivirus software, in most cases, like Windows Defender, to ignore the expired certificates, but it won't by default.
Yeah.
So watch out for that. And download from Nvidia.com, for the love of God. Why would you be getting your drivers somewhere else?
I mean, if you have to register for the GeForce experience, I guess you can, but the GeForce, that's just terrible. That's, again, the marketroids are like, we need
Watch these
email."
ads while this updates.
Yeah. it's just-
I truly believe, and deep in my heart, that they slow down that process to get more ads in that.
Oh, I
slideshow.
believe it.
Yeah. And it's not very often that we see super critical Linux bugs. Now, there are some gotchas at the end that maybe this is not the end of the world, but it's pretty scary.
Linux has been bitten by its most high-severity vulnerability in years. The dirty pipe vulnerability has the potential to smudge people using Linux and Linux derivatives.
What a strange stock image they've used for this article.
The person read the article and they had no idea.
Yeah.
Couldn't they put like a penguin in the shark's mouth?
Nah, it should be like one of those nasty industrial runoff pipes.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
When the penguin's stuck in it.
So it turns out pipes are convenient ways of piping information from processes to disks, or from processes to files, or from processes to processes. It turns out you can create a situation where the pipe will be reused, and that may pollute the pipe with data. And if you're very careful about that, you can get some privilege escalation. You can do some other fun things.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty. I imagine they'll patch it.
It's
pretty
already
quickly.
patched.
Oh, wow.
And the Echo, I don't know. You think the Echoes are still as hot as they were? Are they still selling a lot of those? I haven't seen a lot of numbers for that.
I don't
Seems
know
like-
anybody who wants one, really, but
I bet a lot of them are just sitting there doing nothing. You think they're still listening?
Yes, they're still listening.
Yeah, that's a rhetorical question. So the thing about the Alexa, though, is the Alexa can hear itself talking, and it can take commands from itself. That seems like a weird security issue.
Attackers can force Amazon Echoes to hack themselves with self-issued commands.
So you get yourself a Bluetooth connection, and then you pass that audio through to play it through the Alexa, and then the Alexa hears it, and they say, oh, I know what to do with that. I'll do something. They also pointed out that by adding a 6-second delay and just saying yes, you get by the whole confirmation thing.
wow.
It's like that time that we tricked everybody into ordering 5-pound bags of gummy bears.
But we didn't know to do that. Next time. And it seems like the new telemetry tracking horrible Big Brother world, the way they're going to get the youth into it is by making all the fun things that they want to do require it. But God bless them, they're fighting back a little bit.
Red Rocks Amphitheater will no longer use Amazon's palm scanning technology. It's like, oh, you want to go to the amphitheater? Scan your palm, please.
That's a pretty sweet amphitheater. Look at that rock. You think people climb that rock and fall and get hurt all the time?
Probably. They might have to keep security around it during shows to be like, stay off the rock,
Get a
please.
couple of beers in you
Yeah.
at a Neil Young show.
I'm going to climb that mountain.
And this just goes to show you that when it comes to tracking even though we have these laws, even though it's all, it's at the front of a lot of people's minds, some people, when they hear about it, they're just like, yeah, we should do that. And they don't think about the implications at all.
George Washington University apologizes for its data project monitoring system, where it was monitoring students' locations and literally everything that they did.
Not just students, it was the staff too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get the student ID as a student, or the staff ID as staff, and you're buzzing through doors, and you're going to the exercise area, and you're passing under their closed circuit television system. Well, guess what? All of that was creating entries in a database the whole time. And then somebody looked at that and said, my goodness, what are we doing?
And they said, listen, we completely anonymize this data. We can never tie this back to a human being. And then someone pointed out, you in your data, you separate by gender. And they're like, oh yeah, we track that.
No,
gender we track.
So like our university, we had the key card system like that. And I remember I know that they checked it because getting into the dorms required a key card swipe, and they wanted to make sure like no one was letting other people in who were from outside of the university. So it's like, how do you know unless you're checking people's names to make sure they're part of that dorm?
We had our dorm, the doors on some of those buildings, they lock at the top. And as we would go out, we'd flip the lock up, which means when the door closed, it wouldn't close.
Right.
So everybody would just come in and out. And it was a constant cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
Sometimes they would have a custodial guy just kind of like hiding in the bushes trying to catch you do it.
We had a low-tech version of that where it was just put a brick in the door.
That was so stupid. But that was we started college in 2000. So that next year, it got a lot more serious.
We rolled out a test of that, and it turns out that wasn't good. So now we need to roll out a more sophisticated test.
Well, I really thought this week would be longer. Maybe we're just getting too efficient at this. Another 30 minutes.
Well, I mean, half of it is just bad things happening in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And probably spreading elsewhere as well.
Who knows? But we'll see you tomorrow.
Had a little bit more business news too, so maybe it'll be.
Yeah, the business news is the longest one of the week. So if you're looking for a big meaty episode, it's going to be on Wednesday.
We'll see you then. Bye. Hello, everybody. Oh.
You gotta wait for the pops.
The pops are gone. Hello, everybody. It's March 16th, and business and robot and space today. It is a triple header.
Lost in space.
Space. It's kind of like sad stories about space. At least one of them is, but.
Wow. All the stories.
No astronaut left behind. That should be the title.
Oh, well, we'll forget about that. Hopefully we don't.
Now, I have said that I believe probably the person who is most angry. Well, no, I can't say that. I mean, people who have dead loved ones are the most angry. Let's say the person who's the most angry about this conflict, who has no right to be, is Donald Trump. Because all of his announcements have been dwarfed because everybody is watching this. And I imagine that Apple is feeling just a little bit of that as well.
Yeah.
Apple had an event? What?
Yeah, all their big announcements were dwarfed because there's something more interesting to look at.
Apple's Mac Studio is a new desktop for creative professionals. It's more powerful than the Mac Pro. They didn't really provide a lot of details, but what details they did provide, it looks like this tiny little,
box.
Thick Mac Mini is going to outperform the Intel Xeon 28-core monster machine that costs like $50,000 with the FPGA accelerator card.
And this new Mac Studio spec'd all the way out, the best options you can get. In comparison, only $10,000.
Oh, am I the only one who doesn't really like that form factor? I don't know why. I don't like the way it sits under the monitor.
No, I like a big giant case because eventually I'm going to have to stuff a bigger video card in it.
Just stuff more crap into it.
No, Apple wants you to throw this away in a year or two and get something else.
But Apple did announce the M1 Ultra, which I love the name of this thing because it's one character away from a terrible government program that we did that you should look into. But this thing is amazing because they kind of just glued together two of the other M1 chips, and it seems to be twice as fast. How did that happen?
Apple announces new flagship M1 Ultra desktop processor for its most powerful computers. The M1 gets an even more powerful variant. Now, okay, it's twice as many cores, it's twice as fast. The scaling did work really well. Yeah, that's great. But
They just literally stacked one on top of the other one.
yeah, there's no single core performance improvement here, none whatsoever, and only 128 gigs of RAM maximum.
Now, they claim somewhere in here, it just seems insane that this was going to compete with high-end, it's going to have a comparable GPU performance to the highest-end discrete GPUs. Are they talking about the 30 series?
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
I think that's going to be for like encoding and stuff like that. I don't think that's going to be for gaming.
Does anyone really game on
No
iPhone?
ray tracing on that?
No.
And if you get that $10,000 version of that machine or any of the pictures that you've seen here, you're going to need to buy a very, very expensive monitor. Very expensive.
Apple confirms the Studio display. It'll work with PCs, but not really. It's got a built-in webcam that's decent, and that will work because that's USB. But all the fancy True Tone things not going to work, and the center stage that's not going to work because that requires other Apple hardware and software. So, yeah.
And somewhat dwarfed in all those other announcements, there is, of course, a new iPhone.
Apple announces a new iPhone SE with the A15 Bionic and 5G connectivity. So this is the poor people iPhone.
They should just call it that. The poor phone.
They also announced a new color on one of the iPhones. Green.
Oh.
Just in time for the World War.
They don't have a picture of it here.
I mean, it really is crazy, but this iPhone is really all that 99.99% of people would ever need. Like, you don't need any of the other things.
You know who wishes they had that iPhone? Russians.
I really wish the iPhone SE was also more repairable. That would be a nice
That's true of any phone.
thing that, well, I mean, on the iPhone SE, it's like, cost minimization is kind of the thing here. It's like, all right, let's make it modular and repairable. Who cares if it's thick as a brick?
I think some people would care.
Yeah.
The influencers would care. And you are foreshadowing because Apple and all the other big tech companies were graded. Guess who came in dead last?
Apple, Microsoft, and Google all received poor grades on repairability report card. Yeah, Microsoft, with their Surface line, is doing better these days than Apple. How insane is that?
But Dell at the top of the pack for repairability.
They're getting better. And Dell's even making moves to go even more repairable, so we'll see.
Smart move. Apple got a average of 3.16 out of 10.
That means there's a non-trivial chance that when you just try to repair it, you're going to make it worse.
Yeah.
That's by design, right?
Yeah.
And the Apple world, the engineers are graded on that same scale, but reversed. It's like, listen, if this gets above a 5, you're done. No,
we need to sell
repairability.
more hardware.
Yeah. There literally are memos that are, if we make this more repairable, it's going to hurt our bottom line. It's just, no.
But we're committed to the environment, except when we're not.
We will be committed to the environment now because we can't buy nickel for a reasonable price.
Yeah.
Well, they might not be committed to the environment, but one thing that the big tech companies are deciding they have to commit to is security. Because the world of being hacked is just a never-ending nightmare. From now on, I don't think we're ever going back to, even where we were before this. It's just going to get worse. Google knows that.
Google to acquire cybersecurity Mandiant for $5.4 billion, or approximately 10 possessed super yachts.
And that's a cash deal, not even stock.
Wow.
They're just like, yeah, we got that in the bank.
It's fine.
Write this man a check. And Stadia, as we know, failed. It failed pretty spectacularly. And they were trying to think of new ways to use it. They were looking at the Peloton type of thing. Like, well, maybe we can use Stadia to let people exercise together. But I guess somebody there is still working on it.
Google hints at Windows games running on Stadia. This is probably not with Windows native, but maybe.
Yeah, I think it is emulated. Gaben has definitely fulfilled his prophecy.
He really has.
And he has set fire to the Linux gaming world.
I like how he did it in stealth mode, too. He wasn't... They didn't show up and say, this is what we're going to do. They just quietly funded the people who were philosophically aligned with how they wanted to do things and kept them in stealth mode as long as possible. And that's how you do it.
Under promise, over deliver.
Well, no, I mean, the Linux community, there are certain vocal people in the Linux community where if you say, I'm going to do this, and they don't like that, they'll show up and tear it down. And there are vocal people that have different opinions that will sort of show up in war with one another. So if you want to be successful, you just have to sort of do it quietly and hope that by the time you release it, it's got enough inertia to overcome that nonsense.
It's just astonishing how the Linux community is so self-destructive.
Yeah.
And it's because of mental illness. You have to identify mental illness and come to terms with it. That's something that our entire country has to do. But it's faux pas. You're not allowed to talk about it. And when it comes to HTC, maybe some of those mental illness people are working high up in that company because, my God, they're just chasing gimmicks. And this one seems like the worst one to chase.
Remember when HTC was a good company?
I think this is worse than 3D TVs.
Wow.
HTC pivots from blockchain to the metaverse for its next smartphone gimmick. Now, I still have an HTC 3D camera smartphone. Remember that? It had 2 cameras on the back and they were at an angle. It could actually take stereoscopic movies, and you could upload those stereoscopic movies to YouTube. It had a surprisingly long ecosystem of functionality. So, HTC could innovate on something here, because I think the 3D cell phone was kind of neat.
How many stereoscopic YouTube videos have you watched this week?
0.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, if you recall, when Apple began to conquer the world, they figured out something that in the business world at that point was saying BlackBerry will live forever. No one will stop BlackBerry. Why? Because they got the keyboard, and everybody needs the keyboard. Soft keyboards, we're never going to tolerate those. That was incorrect. But typing on a soft keyboard does kind of suck.
It is awful.
The haptic feedback, they're
So
getting
awful.
a little bit better at it, but it's still,
hate it.
it's no. You bought what's the name of that phone you bought?
The FX1.
Just because it had the
Had a
slidey
keyboard,
keyboard.
Yeah.
I think you gave up on that eventually.
It was
didn't you?
not great.
Yeah.
It was not a great keyboard.
But you paid a bunch of money just for the keyboard.
Yeah.
That's how important it is, and that's why it's important to fix that problem.
Your brain is fooled into feeling shapes and textures on this temperature-changing touchscreen. So maybe this would give you a little haptic feedback about where the keys are, and your finger will be like, oh, that feels like a key, even though there's no key there.
Seems like that's going to be battery intensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, converting all that energy to heat. Yeah.
Will that be like a prepper thing? It's like get a phone that has this so you can warm up your fingers in the apocalypse?
I don't think that's the most efficient way
No.
to warm your fingers.
It's funny. I still use the FX Tech 1. I still use it when I'm trying to fix something. Like if I need a remote terminal, or if I need to take something with me, like behind a server rack or something, and I'm like fixing the server remotely, that's when I'll use it. But it's very hard to use your thumbs. It's much more usable when it's on a desk. But that's what I really liked about the T-Mobile Sidekick and the BlackBerry, is that you could use the thumb orientation, and it worked well. And they did not plan for that on that phone.
Well, the cloud world, cloud hosting is everything. That's really going to be the big problem, right, with the Russian piracy.
Yeah.
Because so much of it is just in the cloud anymore, and you can't really steal that effectively. But the clouds keep shifting.
Like the airplane maintenance manuals. Those are in the cloud.
And one cloud gets bigger than the other. They fight for supremacy. We have a new biggest cloud.
Azure pulls in front of AWS in public cloud adoption? What? As close as Microsoft finds favor with surveyed enterprise IT pros. Oh, okay. So Microsoft has more mind share. There's a couple of things here that suggest that maybe AWS is doing a little better, but I don't know. We'll see.
I imagine that all the people who take on Office in the cloud are then somewhat encouraged to be like, well, let's just have it all Microsoft. Because people like to do that one ecosystem type of thing. It's convenient. Windows 11 is out there. I don't think nobody's really loving it.
No one's been set on fire for Windows 11.
Yeah, it's working. But this is a feature that I think will be
this.
super useful. Yeah, I like this feature.
Microsoft to finally bring tabs to File Explorer on Windows 11. So I did a quick search to find the first mention of, hey, it would be nice if Windows File Explorer had tabs. That was from 2003.
It is annoying. Like a lot of times I'll have one up for like photography and another up with all the design work I'm doing, and another thing up with like sitemaps and stuff. It's like it'd be great just to have one window for that.
Yeah. Well, it seems kind of obvious when you think about, like, let's say that you're a Microsoft, designer or programmer, and you're working on File Explorer, and you're looking at it, and you're like, yeah, and then you move over to your web browser, but nothing clicks.
Yeah, it's like,
Well, this is
man,
really
it should be so
convenient.
nice.
So, and of course, the gig economy. The gig economy is a big deal. I imagine the delivery drivers are getting crushed by these gas prices, right?
Yeah,
they're not
absolutely.
You know that Instacart is not adjusting anything they're getting paid, right?
That's the problem.
Although I got charged for a heavy order the other day. They're now
Really?
throwing $2 on you if you get multiple cases of water because it's
Wow.
heavy. It's ridiculous. I know I'm ridiculous for using it. I know I'm lazy, but those people, you know, you get that job, you get it going, and it can just get yanked right out from under you.
Tens of thousands of workers have been left behind as tech platforms are pulling out of Russia. So if you were a gig worker and you were working in Russia, bad news. Not just a gig worker, pretty much literally everything. We've got a story on nonsense in the nonsense section. We'll talk about it more, but you know, like YouTube monetization, that's gone. OnlyFans, that's gone. PayPal, that's gone.
And just a little bit to the east there, the same thing is happening, but for much different reasons. Because over there, they're leaving not because they want to make a statement or anything like that, but because they literally can't continue to work there.
Red Hat is halting business operations in Russia and moving some employees out of Ukraine. So it's like, hey, if you want to stay behind and fight, great. If not, come with us. We'll find somewhere for you.
Can their male employees even leave at this point if you're a Ukrainian citizen? Aren't they keeping them there?
You know, I've been watching a lot of that, the Polish border coverage, and there'll be cars, and they'll be interviewing people in the cars, and the men, it's like, that man is not over 60, but he's leaving.
Yeah.
Have they relaxed that?
I don't know.
Maybe some guys, like, they get them in the training, and they're like, you know what, go to Poland.
You shouldn't be here.
They give him a dummy grenade, and he throws it on the ground. And, of course, China has their own labor issues, namely slavery. And that is really, really frowned on across the world. But some companies, they just keep doing business with it.
Amazon suppliers linked to forced labor in China, a watchdog group says. There wasn't enough layers of indirection. They should have figured it out. This one was about 3 layers deep. So,
Yeah, somebody put the red strings together, and they found out, yep, forced Uyghur labor is probably in some Amazon products.
sometimes you got to watch headlines like this, though, because, you know, companies like Foxconn have been included in that. And Foxconn makes darn near everything. So it's like, well, is it Foxconn that's the company that's accused for doing that? Because most of their labor is probably not slave labor. But there might be some just because of the sheer size of it. But no, this doesn't look great.
Well, they should be auditing their supply chains.
Did we do this same story, or was that a different Steam Deck story that we did?
We did a different Steam Deck story. This is brand new.
Okay. Did we talk about? I feel like we talked about this. Anyway, Steam Deck. We talked about how the Steam Deck is changing everything in terms of Linux gaming, but now
The Steam Deck now runs Windows. Valve offers no Windows support beyond these drivers, and the speakers won't work yet. They're still working.
by the time they watch this, the speakers will work.
Probably.
And you can run audio out through the USB if you want to do that. Or Bluetooth. Get yourself a pair of Bluetooth headphones. Amazon, and despite the fact that they use slave labor and do all sorts of horrible things and cheat their sellers,
I would say that it's inevitable that they have to do increasingly horrible things in order to sustain growth, because how much bigger can you grow?
Yeah.
Well, when your stock price is over $2,000, it can be difficult for your plebs to even transact in those. I mean, how long will it take an Amazon warehouse employee to save up $2,000 to get one share of Amazon? And if they give you shares as part of their profit sharing program, you might want to sell less than $2,000 at a given time. So they have solved that problem.
Amazon board approves a 20-to-1 stock split, and it's the first since before the dot-com bust. There's a helpful graph in this article that tells you just how bananas the Amazon growth is. It's like, what, 3,500%?
Oh,
Where did the graph
There's
go?
no graph.
Is there a link to it on like Twitter or
There
something?
totally was a graph somewhere here. But it had a
remember that.
chart, and it was nuts. And it was really nuts for the last couple of years. Amazon, for the pandemic, was the final nail in the coffin for a lot of local businesses. So Amazon absorbed a crazy amount of, because you weren't allowed to go to the store, so all the stores are gone now.
Yeah. And they have not gotten back to their proper shipping. I don't know if we're ever getting back to that, which is so sad.
It's a logistical nightmare. I mean, they're shipping 3 times as many goods as they were, so...
Did you see the little banner at the top of Amazon? I think it was today or yesterday, where it was like, bad weather expected in your area. Shipping will take longer.
I was watching that. I don't remember the name of the channel, but there's these 2 Russian Anglophiles who have a channel, and of course it's super interesting.
The guy
now.
and his wife.
Yeah, and they got an Amazon package there, and the Amazon driver was like trudging through 3 feet of snow.
Yeah,
and he was so bitter about having had to come there, and they were so excited about their package. They're like, "Oh, a package from America." He's like, "Yeah, don't go back inside. You might have to push my van." But like, you think about how miserable our Amazon drivers are.
yeah.
Rural Russia Amazon drivers, and now they're out of work.
Was that the video where they pulled out like the air package and they opened it? They're like, air from America.
I don't know if that was the same one or not.
That was
they get
really
a lot
funny.
of packages. Yeah. Anyway,
The state police will not allow such things anymore.
I kind of wonder what's going to happen to them. They seem like a sweet couple.
well, NFTs are the other darkness that is encroaching on our world, and not only is it something that all the existing companies are trying to get into, but old companies are trying to come back from the dead, just like with the blockchain. Just change your business and say it's about this, you'll probably get an angel investor from somewhere.
LimeWire is back as an NFT marketplace. Oh,
Now they're
it's got to be trolling, right? It was like when there was some other like 3DFX, it was like 3DFX was back on Twitter. It was just a troll.
or Atari. How many
Yeah.
times has Atari done this?
Yeah.
We've got a new Android-based game deck. It's like you no Android or Atari. You go back into the hole and you stay there.
That's a drop ship from China, and we know it is. But the thing here, the thing they're doing that the other NFT exchanges is not, is they are removing cryptocurrency from it entirely. This will be completely denominated in dollar payments, and you'll just pay with a credit card, which means that they'll probably lose all your NFTs.
Do you get free malware with each download?
I don't even know if you download it. I mean, it's going to be on there.
It's just going to be on LimeWire's website.
Just go on there and look at your GIFs.
Wow. What a service.
And we have seen a lot of poorly managed downsizing and layoffs recently because, the pandemic and everything, and these companies, they have to adjust. Peloton was a great example of doing it absolutely the worst way that
They
you
just
could do
gave
it.
them subscriptions.
Yeah, and maybe now we have a new winner for the worst possible way of doing it.
Better.com employees learned of their layoffs when their severance checks showed up in the payroll app.
Oof.
It's like, have you told everybody they're laid? No, not yet. I'll get to it at some point. And it's like, wait a minute. What?
At the time of the writing, on March 8th of this article, they still had not admitted it.
I think they got, was it 60 days of pay?
60 to 80, I think it said, yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, obviously they'd rather have the job, but
Gives you some time to...
yeah.
Still a hot employment market, right?
Yeah.
Well, we talked... Zelle is one of the buy now, pay later type things, right?
I think so.
Yeah. And we talked about how, like, the fraud has to be overwhelming in that stuff. And the number of people who just simply don't pay you ever. And you never pay, don't make all the payments. Looks like we're right, but no one cares.
Zelle is flourishing, or fraud is flourishing on Zelle. The banks say it's not their problem. So here's criminals get access to your information and sign up for buy now, pay later. You might not realize there's a horrible problem until the pay later thing comes around, which might be a month, might be 2 months after the fact. And by then, the crooks are long gone. And banks say, hey, it's not our problem. We got your info. You owe this.
Yeah, you confirmed it, I say. And here's the disgusting thing about it is this person, they were like, okay, Zelle is not going to help me. Let me try to go to the bank that issued this. Turns out the banks own Zelle, so they don't care. Of course they don't. Remember, another thing about the pandemic is early on in the pandemic, we got sort of like a boost of fitness type stuff. People were super interested in it. They wanted to do it at home, obviously, not go to the gym. And the Fitbit was a big part of that. And so some of those people who bought those Fitbits, which were produced in 2017, are having a very terrible time with them now.
Well, the Fitbit Bionic is being recalled and how to get a refund. It turns out the batteries, they overheat and cause burns.
Ooh.
What a horrible clickbait headline. Oh, this one doesn't have the picture. Did you see the picture?
No.
There's a picture of a guy, and there's a big square of third-degree burn right there.
Ooh.
Yeah. A lot of people have been affected by this, and they said there was a combination of second and third-degree burns. 115 people.
It has to happen quickly, right, for it to get third degree? Like, you don't notice it warming up at all? It just...
Yeah, lithium ion doesn't. Have you seen the
I've seen the car batteries when they,
And also, like the scooter, it's like, let me plug in the scooter in my living room, and then everything's
Just
fine.
on fire.
And then it's just...
Ugh.
Yeah. So watch out for that Fitbit. Maybe like put something under there, a thermal protector.
Put a Band-Aid under it.
Or just get a new one because they recalled them.
An old stressed lithium-ion battery is not your friend.
And more of those are floating around in our world, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, we talked about Mark Cuban and his new, what was the name of his pharmacy thing?
I thought about that as I was reading this, and I couldn't remember.
But his one seemed
There's
like a really, really good idea. It seemed really pro-consumer and actually helpful to our world. I don't feel that way about this.
No.
Amazon Pharmacy partners with health plans for discount drugs. I really can't wait. What's the Amazon robot helper thing? I really can't wait for that to be like, you're not taking your anti-anxiety meds.
This feels, well, they're talking about like health plans. So it's like, are you just working with health insurance? Because I think Mark Cuban's thing sounded like as long as you had a prescription from a doctor, you could get it.
Yeah,
so it was working directly with the doctor and not with the insurance company.
Yeah, but Mark Cuban won't work with insurance companies.
Right.
You pay for his drugs out of your pocket, but they're super cheap. Here, this is Blue Cross Blue Shield, and it's only in 5 states, not our state. So if you have Blue Cross Blue Shield, you can go through Amazon, and then it'll all be honored, I guess.
Meds your way.
Except still really expensive because insurance is still involved.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to be expensive with Mark Cuban, too, but if you don't pay for the insurance up front, although you don't have a choice anymore, do you?
Yeah.
The Obamacare. What a great world we live in. And, yes, this is what we were talking about earlier when it came to nickel. Do you know what happened in the nickel market?
It went up like 100% overnight.
Yes, but what happened as a result of it going up 100% overnight is, so you have the LME, the London Metals Exchange, that's where futures are traded for nickel. There was a trader who got margin called for, I think it was $8 billion.
Whoa.
And that trader could not make the margin call.
Yeah.
So what's supposed to happen there is a default, right? The whole market should have fallen apart. The entity that defaulted, or should have defaulted, was a Chinese nickel producer.
Ooh.
I imagine they're using shorts to hedge for the, because they've got nickel, but then if the price goes down, they want to hedge. So it probably would have destroyed the nickel market outright if this producer went away. So what do? They rolled back the trades.
Wow.
If you won big in nickel during that last run, they just erased it.
Wow.
To bail out this Chinese.
Wow.
Because we wouldn't have nickel.
Right. And if we don't have nickel,
the Tesla has increased its prices of long-range versions of the Model 3 and the Model Y as nickel prices surge.
They weren't cheap to begin with.
do you know where a lot of nickel comes from?
Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
And now soon China. They're really stepping up things. I'm also kind of surprised the oil companies here are not really noticing a lot of activity. There was one guy that posted on a Reddit thread, I don't know how accurate is this, but he's like, I work on such and such platform, around the Gulf of Mexico, and it's like there's 2 people here and we're operating at like 12% of capacity, and so we could literally just throw some switches and crank this thing up and be producing a lot more crude.
Oh, they don't want that.
It's just...
Well, I think, they benefit from the price.
It's a little bit of a problem there.
Yeah.
Is that a fox in the henhouse situation? I don't know.
But that's also true of OPEC. OPEC's doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, that might have just been somebody trying to rile people up, though. But I would believe that there are oil platforms that are operational and not producing at full capacity.
I don't know though, because they are saying that they want more leases and more exploration. The other thing, and again, this is the Fox News line. I don't believe this for a minute, but the argument on the other side of that is it's pointless for us to pull this out of the ground if we have to put it in trucks. You have to let us build a pipeline, and nobody will let them do that.
Uh-huh.
And federal land, they're not allowed to do anything on federal land. It has to be private land.
Mm.
Who's got private land with oil on it that's untapped at this point? And NASA, they've certainly been eclipsed lately, haven't they? Mr. Musk is really showing them up. But they have some old greatest hits that we can look at.
NASA is just now opening a vacuum-sealed sample that it took from the moon 50 years ago. Why?
The alternate title for this is the Andromeda Strain, 2022.
They are literally hoping that when they took the sample from the moon that they captured gases that were frozen. Of course, it was a lot colder on the moon than it is when they're releasing this. But they're hoping that the gas from the sample will give them some clues about the composition of what's on the moon.
They open it up and they're like, moon air.
Yeah.
Well, the astronaut said it smelled a lot like burnt meat and sulfur and that kind of thing.
That was just them farting in their suits.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And NASA, again, somewhat, they've been embarrassed by the private space sector. Private space sector is really putting them to shame, but maybe they just didn't have the budget for it.
NASA's Human Moon Lander program finally gets a full funding in this new budget bill. The omnibus bill is $1.5 trillion. Oh, Lord.
So NASA's getting a piece of that, and we talked about this previously, but we got the space gas station that we're planning and the womaned moon mission that's coming up. So that'll be exciting.
How many brand deals do you think the gas station will do? Get your Mountain Dew at the gas station in space.
My Mountain Dew will be $25.
Yeah, it'll be expensive.
On the moon gas station. And the ISS, of course, we all know that the ISS is a joint venture between the U.S. and the Russians. Actually, it's everybody.
Everyone.
But we're the big ones. We're the two big ones. And the problem is, we're going to be at war.
Russia threatens to abandon American astronaut in space as sanctions threaten the peace aboard the IS. This is just clickbait. The scientists are not going to do this, and if they are, they'll be rescued by Elon Musk on an American broomstick. But yeah, so they're going to land in Kazakhstan. So it's 2 Russian cosmonauts and Mark Vandy High. Is that how you say that?
They were like tweeting against each other. Like the head of the Russian space agency and one of the astronauts. I was like, dude, do not get in a Twitter fight right now.
Well, I think a lot of the Russian people are trying to convince Putin. It's like, no, I'm still on your side. I'm still on your side. Don't doubt that for a minute. Don't doubt it, because I'm sure he's having doubts right now, right? Because it seems like there's high-level leaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be propaganda. But what's not propaganda, at least we hope not. I mean, if they can fake war footage on the level that we're seeing, then the truth is dead, right?
Right.
The truth died with this, because we do see footage of what's coming out of Ukraine, and not all of it is official state footage, thanks to these beautiful people.
Ukrainian drone enthusiasts sign up to repel Russian forces. There have been several posts on Reddit and other sites which are shots like this, but their drone is in the area and like they call it in. It's like they're a spotter, and it's like, oh, here's a cluster of whatever, and then
those tanks
30 seconds later they just explode.
That tank column north of Kiev, and that is amazing drone. If you haven't seen that, check that out, of just those tanks, and it's like, oh, is that a drone in the air? And then boom, artillery all over them. Which also kind of, in my mind, maybe the Russians are just bad at their jobs, but it seemed like laser precision, the artillery they put on that tank column, versus the like, well, it was a mistake that we hit that children's hospital.
Yeah.
You just can't aim these things. They're all over the road.
Yeah, I don't, doesn't track, that's for sure.
But what does track is robot cars. They'll track you all over San Francisco, but you will have an unpleasant third wheel.
Cruise and Waymo can now charge San Francisco robo-taxi rides. So there's rules. There's one stretch of road where they can go 60 miles an hour. Mostly it's 30 miles an hour. And they're still required to have the safety driver.
Now, the ones that don't charge you don't have to have the safety driver. But the ones that do charge you, got to have a safety driver.
Are you paying for that safety driver?
Basically.
Yeah.
They probably don't pay them that much, though, right?
Probably not.
Have you ever seen the YouTube channel where the woman has the cat and it's got the buttons that it can press, and she claims that it can talk? I wonder if that's real.
The one with the dog seems much more real.
You can train a dog to press a button to like indicate something. Like Rue goes to the door to let me know she needs to go out, or she'll hit her bowl to tell me I'm thirsty.
The dog that I'm thinking of, they had a mirror, and the dog was like, "Who's that?" And it was like, "That's you." And the dog was just like, "What? what?" And it was like, dog has existential crisis.
Putting a dog in front of a mirror or a baby in front of a mirror, that's always A+ entertainment.
And of course, there was the gorillas that could do sign language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys remember this story. We did a nonsense story a while back, there was a group of scientists, for whatever horrible reason, that were trying to communicate to those gorillas that they were going to die someday. It's like, why? Why are we telling them that?
All the gorillas just sit and stare, just sadly.
Just stop eating. But apparently there is another animal that's known for being smart that is now going to be able to communicate with us.
The grunt of the litter. Scientists use AI to decode pig calls.
What a good title. That's disgusting how good that is.
They actually put thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of audio into this, and it seems to be a really good data set. And now they have a reasonably okay pig translator.
But, well, they don't have a translator at this point. What they're hoping is that someone will build the app to use their library to create the pig translator.
What if they have like a really regional accent?
Or also, what if they're just miserable?
That'd also be sad.
Yeah.
It's just constant screaming.
I will only be happy if the app says, Dennis, there's some lovely filth over here, as one of the possible things that it can say.
Happy as a pig in mud.
That's not how that phrase goes.
What is it? Oh.
It's a word we can't say.
Oh.
And finally, we have another DeepMind accomplishment. Is there anything that DeepMind can't do at this point? Yeah, there is one thing it can't do.
World peace.
Make us learn from this history.
Find
Because
love.
clearly we've learned nothing from a lifetime of war.
DeepMind AI helps historians restore ancient texts. So they fed it a bunch of ancient texts, 5 million or 3 million words worth, and they're using it to reconstruct works that have been damaged in Greek between the 7th century BC and the 5th century AD. It's quite a run. It seems to be working quite well.
It's exciting. I don't think we'll learn a lot of new things from those.
Yeah, maybe not.
It'll be funny, like what sort of things are preserved. There was one of the things that was recently decoded, not from this, but from something else. Somebody was complaining. It was like, what sort of mystery will this unlock? This cultural icon. This is just, why would somebody engrave something like this? And it was somebody that had ordered a bunch of copper for a monument they were building, and they were complaining about the grade of the copper from the copper supplier. And
the guy's name is like immortalized in history, but I can't think of it right now.
Yeah, it's just something so weird and mundane.
It's kind of like the Mona Lisa, right? It wasn't anything special.
Just, a portrait of a lady who paid for it.
I'll be a little bit sad for the future of humanity if in 1,000 years, like, one of the things that survived from this era is like, a vacuum sealed Mike Lindell MyPillow, and they're like, oh yeah.
Oh, this must have been very important.
I'm not sure whatever MyPillow's made of would survive, even sealed like that.
An episode of the L1 News survives.
That would, when they unsealed the Mike Lindell MyPillow 200 years from now, it's probably just going to be some sort of toxic dust.
They slept on these? All right. We'll see you guys on Friday.
And we've got
nonsense.
so much nonsense on
There's
Fridays.
a lot of nonsense. We didn't even sort it. All right. Bye. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Level 1 News. Today is Friday, and it is March 18th. This weekend is my cousin's baby shower.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, I get to go to that tomorrow.
What a time to be having a baby.
You should protest it. Like, take a Ukrainian flag and protest it.
How dare you have any joy in your life right now? I've already got her gifts. They'll be here, hopefully, if the snow doesn't delay them.
Well, you're kind of close, aren't you?
I've got like a week before her shower.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
The previous. Yeah.
We're recording this in the past.
Time shifting.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some social media. And this, Axios is reporting something. I don't know how true these numbers are, but this does give us some hope for the world. Because the worst of us are the heaviest tweeters.
The new silent majority, people who don't tweet.
Dab on him.
Woo!
He says,
You don't tweet that often.
knowing that he's part of them.
I tweet a lot.
A lot. Some people tweet a lot. You
What's
don't
your
tweet that
daily
often.
average, do you think?
I don't know.
More than 10?
No, definitely not.
Between 5 and 10?
Probably less than 5.
That's probably like,
You tweet like maybe once a day, if that.
that's functional alcoholism / drug addiction level right there. No one would necessarily know it, but there's serious repercussions.
Sometimes I tweet just to make a note to myself to do something later, and it's like, I'm gonna take a picture of this so that I remember, and then people are like, "This is neat," and it's like,
Yeah, that's the same kind of insanity that would be like painting the outside of your house with the blackboard paint and just scribbling all over it.
That's a cool idea.
That's insanity.
That's a cool idea.
That's madness. Is what
I
that
should paint
is.
my front door with that, and then you can color on it.
And then somebody shows up, puts a swastika on it, takes
Oh,
a picture.
yeah.
Yeah. You don't
Oh,
wanna
I didn't
do
think
that.
about. I was thinking like, oh, my nieces could come and draw on the front door. That'd be cute.
Oh man, maybe just keep it to yourself, just like the Twitter people should. Well, we do a podcast, but we do it very infrequently.
We
In
do it
fact,
often.
Sorry, patron.
criminally infrequently, considering people give us money. But we're going to try to be better. However, we probably won't get this deal.
YouTube offers popular podcasts $50K in cash to pivot to video. Starting up video production is expensive, but YouTube is willing to help with that. Yeah.
Not a bad deal. I imagine you have to have a pretty big audience, and I don't think if you had a big enough podcast audience, you probably didn't need that 50K.
Right.
But it'd be nice.
What's the one where they solve old murders? They're surprisingly successful at that.
There's quite a few murder mystery sort of podcasts.
Spotify has all like the podcast roundup, and I'm just not interested in any of it.
Yeah, I don't like podcasts that well myself. I'll listen to them occasionally.
I like.
but-
There's one or two that I listen to, but a lot of times for me, a podcast has to do with the guest rather than like the Joe Rogan. I'm not necessarily interested in the Joe Rogan podcast. When we have certain guests, I'm like, I want to hear what that person has to say.
See, I like certain topics. Like, I'll listen to someone talk about like their experiences backpacking or something. But even that is not always the case. Like, some of them's like, nah.
I wonder if Howard Stern looks at Joe Rogan and says, "Man, I put too much effort in."
Howard Stern, like,
From a different era.
here's the crazy thing about Howard Stern. If you go back and look at him, I was a big Howard Stern fan when I was in college. If you look at him during like the 80s and 90s, when he was, like just the filthy bathroom humor, Howard Stern, he made a big transition at the turn of the century, and he became something a little different. It was still sexual and stuff like that, but the humor changed in a big way. And he's a chameleon, and he's brilliant because he saw woke and cancel culture coming before a lot of people did. And he transitioned again, and now it is absolutely unlistenable. It is just garbage. It's amazing that he just like completely reinvented himself because he was like, all right, I see what's coming, and I don't believe in any of this, so let me just be whatever they want me to be. He said that Jennifer Aniston looked like she had a smelly vagina. He said it on more than one occasion. Then he did a woke transition. He became part of their world. He goes to her vacation beach house with them. It's an astonishing story. I hope somebody makes a documentary about it someday.
Well, it probably benefits both of them in a weird way, isn't it? Like, no one in that world is really friends. It's all just about networking.
But his whole persona was that he was not that. He was one of us. And then one day he was like,
true.
you know what? I think I'm one of them.
Yeah. I make a lot of money.
They have yachts.
Anyway, that doesn't have a lot to do with Facebook, except that probably if I posted that there, it would be rejected because that's not allowed.
Facebook group admins can now auto-reject posts that fact checkers have debunked. Who's fact-checking the fact checkers?
That's the whole thing, isn't it? But you don't have to worry about, dealing with those individual posts anymore. You can just subscribe to the blacklist. It's like ad blocking.
How long before it takes a couple of points off your social credit score if you don't subscribe to the auto blacklist?
Yeah. You could be experiencing misinformation. That could be dangerous. The other thing that could be dangerous is just watching your television, because your television is absolutely spying on you. And you might say, hey, no. I don't have a smart TV. I have a regular TV. Do you have a streaming service?
HBO hit with class action lawsuit for allegedly sharing subscriber data with Facebook. I'm really waiting for AT&T Uverse to get caught up in this as well, because there seems to be some sort of incestuous relationship between like the Sci-Fi Channel and AT&T Uverse and HBO, because it's like, oh, this IP address is on the list.
There's probably some sort of common
Yeah.
owner, right? Because those charts, have you seen those charts?
Where, yeah, there's like 5
it goes
companies.
back to one entity every time.
How bad do you think Disney is? I bet Disney's way worse about sharing data.
Disney's analytics on people is probably just unsettling.
But I don't think Disney probably doesn't partner as much, right? They probably have it all in-house. Control it themselves.
I think actually I've seen Disney in the future depicted really well in sci-fi. Altered carbon, like what the myths experience in daily life is probably like the trajectory of the Disney Corporation.
Listen, you got to make some sacrifices to create all that magic.
I hate Disney
Blood
so
magic.
much.
Well, Facebook, we learned, I think last week before, that they were relaxing some of the rules on speech because people were saying things that were pro-Ukraine, but were anti-Facebook policy. And that created a sort of a conflict. It's like, oh, we can't be shown as not being supportive of these people, but we do have these rules that are supposed to be applied across the board. Let's just change them. And this week, let's change them a little bit more.
Facebook and Instagram are allowing calls to violence against Russians temporarily. If you're in the Ukraine, I guess it's like you can defend your house with deadly force. You can defend your neighborhood with deadly force.
You control local Russians on Instagram and Facebook.
No, well, so here there are some specific rules. You're allowed to say that you wish death upon, or that someone should kill the military, but not the Russian civilians. And of course, anything you say about Putin's fair game at this point.
God, that is exhausting. How many people just write F Putin under stuff, and it's like, this is not helpful.
It's that one, I swear, that historian guy where he's like, this is not hard to figure out his motivations. He's just a 19th century guy. That's exactly what it is. It's not anything more complicated than that.
But we can't say that guy's name because that guy's now on the list of disinformation.
It's not 4D chess. It was literally just, don't do this. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to respond. And it's like, well, he responded exactly the way that he said he was going to. That's not good.
We're getting into dangerous territory here, but we actually have policies here in this country that match that exactly. And those calls for people to be killed are against the rules. These rules were set out, and we paid a lot of attention to them during the Trump campaign.
Yeah.
And guess who was a big part of that story? Vladimir Putin. So he's seen all of that, and he says, wait a minute.
Russia opens criminal investigation of Meta over death calls on Facebook.
And they can't even access it anymore.
It seems like this drives more nails in the coffin of these companies ever coming back to Russia, right?
It's driving more nails in the coffin of a global
internet.
Not just a global internet, a global community. You will never be able to travel outside the borders of your country and feel safe.
Certainly not Russia, right?
Yeah.
Although I think there are going to be a lot of Russian people who just travel out and never come back.
I think that's already happening. They said that Finland is getting a lot of Russian people trying to get out.
Well, if things continue, Finland will not be Finland if the trajectory continues.
Surely he wouldn't attack them. I say. Surely he wouldn't. Well, because there's other smaller, weaker countries. I would think Finland would be like lower on the list.
If the MO is getting the band back together, Finland was definitely in the band.
But how much reserve force does he have? Because all of his mobile, active forces are now in Ukraine, right? Or we're led to believe.
I imagine he's still got some on the other side of the country. I mean, you can't leave them all defenseless.
He uses a National Guard as his own personal defense, not the military. Yeah. I think that's just because he doesn't trust them. But how much can you put out there and leave yourself defenseless at home?
Yeah. I don't know.
Those are questions that probably beyond this particular YouTube show. But let's say you hate Russians, right? And they're coming out diaspora. Is it diaspora or diaspora?
I think
it's diaspora.
I've heard it diaspora, yeah.
They're coming out around and you're like, oh, I hate them. I'll never be around them. Well, what if one gets into your Tinder? That's some good news.
Tinder rolls out in-app access to background checks powered by nonprofit Garbo.
What a name, Garbo.
Now, here's the thing about it. This is free with a big giant star next to it. It's free for your first 2 uses and for globally the first 500,000 uses. What'll that be, like a day?
Yeah.
Then it's going to be, I think, what, $2.99?
Yeah.
Per lookup. $2.50 plus a transaction fee, so $2.99.
Screw that.
But I don't know. I mean, wouldn't you pay it? I think women, especially,
Probably, yeah.
You gotta do your creeping the old-fashioned way.
What if you can't find me? What if I'm not on Facebook?
And you probably don't match with them, right?
And my Twitter account is only my cats.
You don't match.
Really?
Yeah.
You just completely shut it out?
Yeah. When it comes to safety, hell yeah.
Yeah, but so you're restricting your dating pool to only heavy social media users?
Only to people I can find information about.
That's a mistake. Well, Joe Biden is a fossil.
This is a funny headline.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't even talking about this story. Just
in general, just making a statement.
It's just that we're being led by a corpse.
The Guardian's headline is Joe Biden is a fossil, 328 million years old fossil. A vampire squid has been named after the president.
Do you think this came across his desk and he was just like, what? Okay. Like,
they named it after him in honor of his commitment to address climate change.
Yeah, I thought...
Does he have much of a commitment to that?
Probably less so this week.
No, absolutely. Chris, you're not paying attention. He is giving the Greens whatever they want. That's the whole oil argument right now. Because everybody's like, hey...
But prior to this whole conflict thing breaking out, he wasn't really making any massive strides on it.
No, he absolutely was. He's doing whatever AOC and that bunch tell him to do. Which is just bizarre because he ran as a moderate.
I really hope we in America get some modern nuclear reactors.
I don't think
I'm
we're
not
even
holding my
talking
breath.
about it. No, but that's not on his agenda either.
No.
He's all about wind and solar
No.
and nothing else.
Solar might not be awful if we can lower the production cost, but...
Chris, on the first day of office, he shut down that Keystone pipeline. That was massive for the Greens.
Yeah.
You're not giving Joe the credit he deserves or the discredit. The thing that drives me crazy here, so we're getting paywalled, but in this article, they point out that Obama had a bunch of fossils named after him, and so did Trump, but the Trump ones were all awful stuff. Like really crappy animals and embarrassing.
Why is that a thing? Why do people do that? What a weird naming convention.
Because it gets support for science, like people say,
Gets you a-
scientists.
Yeah, they're trying to get money, I guess.
Gets you a
so.
headline.
Yeah.
You can take a shot at Trump, right?
Yeah.
This new nuclear reactor, the ultimate in green energy. As in it literally glows green. Woo.
Well, the console wars are still hot. It's weird that the console wars now are not as much about like who makes the better console, because they're pretty comparable. It's about who has the exclusivity deals. And that makes people really angry. They get really, really up in arms about it, even in some bizarre situations like this.
Doctor apologizes for ranting about console wars from operating room. This is one of those operating rooms where they have a gallery, and this is a doctor who is, I guess it was doing a routine procedure, or they were documenting this for medical students or something like that. Something like that.
No. He was specifically recording this to make a statement about consoles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He had to...
He was the anesthesiologist.
And the surgeon. He was
Okay.
doing it all. And so the quote he made was, I'm here doing this thing or other, and at the same time slandering my identity profession because you Xbots can't argue facts. Like he was just picking back up an argument he had been having on Twitter
Wow.
about the consoles.
That is wildly unprofessional.
Yeah. So he's now being review bombed, his clinic, and
That's not fair.
some people are looking into this
Aw.
from the regulators.
He probably deserves to have a regulator look into that if
Well-
he's doing it while he's doing a procedure.
And he panned around the room, which showed the person unconscious on the
Right.
table.
That's a violation.
That's very illegal.
That's frowned on, yeah.
Deeply frowned on.
Illegal, in fact.
I saw this headline everywhere.
Yeah.
I hope this is blown out of proportion.
They're already in Georgia.
Even though it does say that they're harmless and their fangs aren't long enough to really penetrate human skin, I don't care.
They're big.
I'm not into this.
Millions of palm-sized flying spiders can invade the East Coast soon. A huge invasive spider from East Asia has swarmed Georgia and could soon take over most of the
They're
U.S.
bright
East
yellow.
Coast.
Look,
Yeah.
oh, that's not a good picture.
The good thing about them, well, they've only got the one picture. The good thing about them is that they're easy to spot.
Yeah, they're bright yellow. That also makes it look smaller. I mean, it's not like the size of your fist, but they're pretty good size.
The other thing that Scientific American somehow overlooked, and I don't understand how they did this, these spiders, pro-Ukraine.
They've been here before. I think they've already found them in Georgia, and they expect once the summer months hit, they'll start spreading north.
I used to get a lot of those garden spiders, which are yellow like that.
Mm-hmm.
You ever get those? Those things are horrific looking, but they're really good for your house. But do I really want to spend time with a garden spider? Got to have one black hole story a week, right? You just have
Been a
to.
lot lately. 2 black holes collided billions of years ago. The spectacle is just beginning to reach Earth.
So there was a ripple in space-time.
Woo. That's cool.
It's going to be a supermassive black hole because that's what happens when. I guess you wouldn't call that mating, right?
They're collapsing together.
Like Elon Musk and Grimes.
Like modern society.
Aw. I hope this isn't the great filter.
Yeah, what a terrible filter. We didn't have time to do anything really impressive. One thing that this woman did that was impressive is that she got a really cool license plate. Now, this article points out that they granted her this license plate, but then revoked it after they said they got several calls to complain about the license plate.
Who's the jerk who's complaining?
They should identify those people, and we should wipe out their entire bloodline. We should go back and forward as far as we have to. I don't care if we have to kill babies, because we need to get that out of whatever that is. We got to get rid of it.
North Carolina woman fights to keep her fart license plate. I too had a similar thought, which is, how can somebody possibly be so joyless that they want to take someone that away from
Or they
someone?
want to take the farts away.
Or have so little going on in their lives that this becomes a big thing to them. So now she has organized a defense for this where she says that she's not talking about farting. She's talking about
Friends of Asheville Recreational Club.
trails. Yeah.
Trails, yeah.
A trail group, which didn't exist before this, but actually now does and is having meetings. I think she could get just a synonym. Poot.
Poot's funnier. I would like that even more if I got stuck in traffic behind that.
Toot. Although people probably just honk their horns at you, right?
Yeah.
Well, Krista, you are a hiker.
Right.
And you've never had to be rescued.
No, hopefully never do.
Have you ever had a scare?
No, not really.
What would you do if you felt like you were in danger on a hike?
Well, I guess this would kind of count. One year we did a backpacking trip over a long weekend. It was right before the thing happened, and it was really, really cold, which was fine, but then it started to just pour rain and ice on us, and we made the decision to bail out a little early because we were like, there's nothing dry here, the rivers are rising, we need to go.
Did you immediately the next day make the exact same mistake?
No, we were like, we're going to stay home because it's still raining and freezing and the rivers are rising.
It's probably the correct choice.
Yeah. New York City man rescued twice in 2 days on Arizona hikes. These weren't moderate hikes either. I think he was going up like a 13,000-foot mountain.
Boy, here I go, getting lost again.
Yeah. Well, and there were snowy conditions, and it takes a long time to make it up a mountain that high. And he was like, oh, I thought I could do it in 2 hours. And it's like, what?
Well, that was day one.
Yeah.
And then they rescued him and they said, listen, this is a serious trail. You are not ready for this trail.
And it's snowing. Yeah. He wasn't equipped for it either, apparently, but he didn't have an ice axe or anything.
So what he did the next day was do it again, and he fell down a ravine and hurt his leg. So that one required a helicopter.
I wonder if they made him pay for it.
I think everybody should have to pay for that.
Yeah.
That's crazy that we use
Definitely-
taxpayer dollars.
Definitely do need to bill him for that.
They should bill him double. You know what? They should get a new helicopter, and he should be the one
Levy an idiocy tax.
that pays for it.
There's a $2,000 idiocy surcharge on my invoice.
The amount of, so I follow the local search and rescue groups from some of our trails around here, and the amount of posts they've had to make in the last 2 years since the thing started, where it's literally every weekend. It's like, hi, someone went out here wearing sandals. They had no water, and it was 8 o'clock at night. And then they complained they couldn't find their way back. They were a mile from the trailhead. Please don't do this. Please take a map and water and make sure you have a flashlight if you're going out late. Just basic stuff.
It's super depressing because we have that American spirit of westward expansion and just going off into the unknown. But we don't have any of what made us good.
The skills, yeah.
We're just idiots now. We're idiots that want to go get into stuff.
It's not even a skill to just carry some basic things like a map and water. But
Well, it's clearly something that some people don't have.
Couple
Yeah.
granola bars for energy.
yeah, right. Just if I had to spend the night out here, I could do that. But people just don't do it.
Well, Krista, another thing that we know about you is that you love cohabitating with bats.
That happened a few years ago. Yeah, it was not great.
Yeah. You were the bat chose you.
Oh,
That's him calling right now.
3:15.
thank you. Had an alarm set from the other
You
day.
remember me, Krista? You remember when you just left me to die? So I don't think it's that particular bat, but it could be.
He could be flown all the way out there.
He could have flown to Austin.
Real bat disrupts screening of The Batman in North Austin Theater. He was a little baby bat, the one that got in my house. Maybe he's grown now and he's just out there.
What's
doing
the
bad
lifespan of a
things.
bat? I think we discussed that when you had your original bat
I don't
problem.
remember.
And I don't remember what it was.
I have a bat box at my house. I haven't hung it up yet, but
They had to pause the movie. It's like, wow, the special effects in this movie are so real. And then it was, no.
someone's like, "Oh, I've been bit," and then they have to have a rabies shot.
I think this was also one of those dinner theaters. So they had food.
Ooh.
And they told the people, they were like, listen, just come to the next showing. We'll pay for your food. We'll pay for your tickets. You can just do it all again. And they were like, no, we're going to watch it with the bat. And they did. They also think that someone might have brought the bat in.
How do you do that? Like, how do you just pick him up and just
Because
be free?
it's already hard to sneak stuff into a theater, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're going to step up security and search people to try to find bats coming in.
That's going to make it real hard to sneak your snacks in. Not that I've ever done that, but, if you did hypothetically put snacks in your bag, that's going to be hard now.
Yeah. That's probably why they're doing it, right?
Yeah, probably.
They're using that. Never let a bat crisis go to waste.
Waste.
And we have a lot of international well-wishing for the Ukraine. I mean, is any country other than China and North Korea, like Syria maybe, there's the 5 or 6 that are in that collective that aren't saying good things about Ukraine, but also some really unexpected countries.
The Taliban have called for Russia-Ukraine peace, saying they fear for civilians. Yeah, it's getting real dicey for civilians. Some really unpleasant things happening. And
I love the Taliban LARPing as like a major power.
As like a legit government.
Yeah, they're always doing those statements and stuff. It's just so good. So good that they're doing that. What if we're in some kind of crazy future where they eventually, it's like fake it till you make it, and they're accepted and they become a major world power, a democracy?
I'm
Might
curious
be a
for
net positive for everybody, right?
I'm really curious for our Canadian viewers to comment if the next thing is real.
Well, it doesn't sound that close,
But
right?
it might be a local,
I always thought
joint only.
when I only read it as a younger man, I always thought it was Putin. I always thought that was a better word. Putin doesn't sound right to me. But Poutine, well, you could get confused, especially a little bit of a French accent on that.
The Vigor Times says that a Canadian diner has renamed Poutine because it sounds too much like Putin.
Now, this diner claims to be the place that invented poutine. Do you believe that?
No.
No.
It's a good marketing gimmick.
Yeah.
So they wanted to rename it to La Frite Fromage Sauce, fried cheese gravy.
Oh, come on.
It's not as catchy as poutine at all.
That's like when we tried to rename French fries to freedom fries. Doesn't work.
And we've learned a lot about people defrauding the loan system that happened with the pandemic. We had the couple who was doing the testing stuff and getting all those loans. They bought supercars. There were some other people that bought mansions. This one is maybe the dumbest one of all.
A Georgia man who used relief funds from the pandemic to buy a Pokemon card has been sentenced to prison. Georgia man has been sentenced to federal prison after he lied to obtain a business relief fund. So it's like, hey, if you're, during the thing, if you're going to have an underflow or you know that your customers aren't going to pay your bill, you can get a loan. And then if you meet certain requirements, you don't lay people off, you don't do anything terrible, they'll forgive the loan.
He did something terrible.
He did something terrible, and
So-
he's going to prison.
What that means is that the United States government now actually owns a super rare Charizard.
Probably a foil Charizard from the original deck.
Well,
Everyone wanted that when I was a kid, and no one had it.
Well, Joe Biden's got it.
Oh. He'd be so cool to 12-year-old me.
You think he could trade it to Russia for peace?
He could donate it to Ukraine.
Yeah.
They could auction it off.
Lindsay's like, what the hell is this here? I don't.
I love how it's like a major story about a crime, and they have to put the word Charizard in there. That just delights me. Now, I was not aware of the legend of this stone. Were you?
Nope.
No, this just came out.
Sounds pretty cool. Sounds very anime.
It does.
Yeah, but apparently it's way before that. This is an ancient stone, and unfortunately, its job was to contain a demon.
In Japan, the Killing Stone has split open, unleashing the legend of a trapped demon.
Put him back.
I think it was a her.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
It was the spider one, right?
It was one that had tried to kill one of the emperors in the mythology. Sessho-seki is a stone that kills anyone who comes in contact with it. Evil nine-tailed fox who took the form of a beautiful woman named Tamamo no Mae. So a furry demon. I don't understand, like, all these rocks look the same. Why that one in particular?
Maybe it was larger before it split.
Where do you think this demon will stand on the Ukraine issue?
That's where she's going. That's where she's headed right now.
Well, which side is she? What's she doing?
That's a good question. I don't think the Japanese have any love for Russia.
Oh yeah, the islands.
Yeah.
They're like, no, it's a sign. We need to take the islands.
So you think that demon is pro-Japan?
Maybe she's opening up a new front on the eastern side of Russia.
Yeah, it's like Japan's going to retake the islands that are contested, and then that's going to trigger a bunch of things. So it's not really that they're for Japan; it's that they're for conflict.
Now, if you're Putin, do you consider a demon attack to be worthy of nuclear response? Because that's what we really have to worry about here.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Scary.
there's not really a lot of options left,
Now we have talked
anti-demon weaponry.
We've talked in the past about geese and turkeys who harass postal workers. And in my mind, I'm always thinking, like, how do you have the patience to deal with an animal that you can easily kill if it's just pecking at you? It turns out I'm not alone.
A feud between mail carriers and wild turkeys has come to a deadly end near Sacramento.
He clubbed this asshole. He got him.
He had a stick, and this turkey was not backing down. They talked about how it was they had a guy who came out who worked with turkeys to get the corpse. Said it was the biggest turkey he's ever seen.
Apparently, the house that they were delivering to apparently feeds the turkeys, and that's why they've become so aggressive. And this is not the first time it's attacked one of the mailmen.
But here's the thing. Those townspeople claim that the turkeys know all of them and are perfectly fine with them. And the owner of the house had been out there earlier in the day, probably feeding the turkey. And the turkey was cool, but they said that as soon as that USPS truck is visible, the turkeys just get crazy.
The USPS had to put out a statement and was like, oh, we will be investigating this, and this does not represent who we are.
I think this guy's going to lose his job, and that's not fair.
That's not fair.
It's not fair.
What is he supposed to do, just be harassed by a turkey?
Yeah, if the turkey is charging you, you stand your ground.
Yeah.
But I guess the postman...
stand your ground straight.
They have to have encountered all this stuff with dogs, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's probably a real hearts and mind type of thing. It's like you could never kill the dog. And now they're probably going to apply that to the turkeys as well.
But a turkey is not a pet.
Well, they're feeding it.
An ill-tempered goose.
Somebody in the comments, Chris, is going to have a pet turkey, and they're going to be angry with you.
Well, I mean, some people raise turkeys for meat. I've never heard of someone keeping them as a pet.
There was one time I punted a goose, and I thought that I did real damage to it, and it was just kind of a reactionary thing, because it jumped out from behind a thing and was like going to pinch me, and I punted it, and I landed a perfect punt on it, and it went flying.
Geese are mean as hell. You don't mess with geese.
Because I was kind of startled.
Did it back down after that?
Yeah, it just sort of stumbled off.
Listen, that's how you deal with terrorists.
You just gotta kick them.
It kind of rolled like a football for a little while, and I thought it was dead, but after about 5 seconds, sort of stood up and wandered off.
I learned an important lesson that day. Actually, probably crushed its little ribs, and it just went off to die.
Oh, when I took Rue to like the park or something near the lake, I have to be very mindful to keep her away from the geese, because Rue has no concept of like that could hurt me. She just wants to run up and play with it.
It doesn't really hurt when they bite you. It's just like a little pinch.
But the way they hiss and like they'll chase you. Yeah.
It
also made an unsettling sound when I kicked it.
Do you think that guy, the moment he felt, because when you hit something hard and you can feel, it's like, oh, something smushed when I did that.
Ooh.
I've killed this animal. Did he have a moment of satisfaction, like finally this stupid Turker, or is he just like, oh God?
Probably that reaction. That's
killed
what,
it.
like his heart probably just fell into the bottom of his stomach.
Whoops.
Well, a lot of people love animals, and they will do a lot for them, including staying in a war zone and being shelled.
India doctor stranded with a jaguar and a panther in Ukraine.
One of those little guys is only a 6-month-old cub.
Yeah, but they're still very big
That
and
is-
dangerous.
In terms of like profile pictures for social media, that's
Yeah,
a pretty good one.
Pretty amazing.
I would put that on a t-shirt.
So this guy obviously cannot leave because the humanitarian corridors do not take big cats. Now you can't put one of those in one of those rescue vans.
No.
So he just have to sit through. I mean, Krista, you said Brew's not really bothered by fireworks very much, right?
No, not
but
really.
some dogs really are.
Yeah, they get freaked
And
out.
Russian shelling is going to be a lot more extreme than a fireworks show. So these big cats have got to be terrified.
You know what I was thinking as I read this? You know, Messi the Puma, they're not getting any money anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Does
Feel
your
bad for those guys.
do your cats react to fireworks?
And Gerda the cheetah, too.
Yeah.
No, my cats really don't care too much.
Yeah, Ruth's never been.
You know what
bothered.
scares my cats is the subwoofer. If I'm watching a movie and, you know, something really, like, especially a low tone in the music, like a, you know, Crouton is just gone. He will not
Wow.
tolerate that. Yeah.
Cricket's very interested in the TV when we turn it on. He likes to look at it and just.
So the other problem that this guy's going to have going forward, well, he's already having that, but he's going to have even more going forward, is these guys eat a lot of meat. And you can't just go to the grocery store anymore. So he says that he's going over the border and paying like 4 times the market price for the farmers.
Not great.
Has some dark connotations of where that could go.
I saw one of those shelling videos, and there was a dog, and you didn't see it, but it sounded like the dog got hit by shrapnel. That was really sad.
I can't. I have to like not watch some of that stuff because I can't.
The one where like it was just a family and they just got a direct hit.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Like they're just laying there.
I didn't look that up at all because I was
There's
like,
a-
I don't need to see that.
There's a pet carrier next to them, and you know whatever's in there is dead, and it's just like, wow. That obviously, if you think about the big picture, that's more depressing. But when you see it like that,
Yeah, I read the description. And was like, I don't. That link's staying blue. I don't want to. I don't want to see that. That's sad.
yeah, well, gotta know what's going on in the world, Krista. Gotta know the darkness to avoid it. And some of that darkness has to do with insider trading. And you're thinking, you're going to talk about Nancy Pelosi again, right? No.
A new one.
This one's actually a little bit more obvious. And yet they claim, just a coincidence.
Lucky Activision stock purchase that led to a $60 million profit is under investigation. So all 3 investors have ties to Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick. So just 3-4 days before the Microsoft acquisition, they bought a lot of Activision stock.
Not only do they have ties to that guy, like crazy historical ties, they were really good friends and they really knew each other well. These don't seem like the kind of guys to me who were playing Call of Duty and interested in Activision because they're big gamers.
Yeah.
Like, why would they be interested in a video game company?
Definitely seems like insider trading. But they're wealthy, so nothing will probably happen to them. Now, if it was Martha Stewart, on the other hand,
She's got to go to jail.
Oh, she had some other problems.
a
Also,
little bit more of a paper trail.
other Blizzard news. I didn't include it because it's not really relevant to many people. But Overwatch 2 beta coming out late April.
Oh.
Sounds like a distraction.
Yeah.
Now, is that still going to be just Overwatch with a new skin?
Kind of. It's more like almost like a DLC because they're doing a lot of PvE stuff. So instead of PvP, it'll be like new PvE maps.
Are you into that?
I'll try it out. Especially if they do like the free weekend things that they do. I'll try it out and see if I like it.
Oh, you're going to buy it. Come on.
I probably will. But maybe I won't like it, and then it's like, oh, I wasted $40. So I want to try it first. But
Just let Reborn Dimension buy it for you. Thanks, Reborn Dimension.
you got a Zomboid, right? It's a good game.
He, not only did he get Zomboid,
We have
for
more
the
money,
two
right?
of you, there's like $75 left on a gift card that he gave me.
Wow.
Yeah. Next game we want, we can check it out.
Woo!
And he bought me several games, one of which I've not played at all. I feel bad about that. GTFO. Are you guys into GTFO?
Haven't played it.
Chat. Is GTFO good and should we play it? I mean, I already got it, so I'm going to eventually.
Let us know
Let us know.
in the comments below.
Woo!
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Hopefully. Bye.